If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back. And I'm joined tonight by our in-house CIA operative, Jeff MD, aka 007. That 007's in American dollars and cents, not British pounds, by the way, or euros or anything else like that. I'm never going to let that one go, Jeff. The guy.
That's fine.
We got this huge diatribe from somebody months ago. Like, I'm not kidding you. If I had to print it out, it was probably a 3-page diatribe on how we were idiots for referring to Jeff as 007 because 007 is clearly British. And then that diatribe was followed up by a second one from someone from Canada who said we were idiots for saying 007 was British when everybody knows that the 007 agent was from Winnipeg, Canada, and it was not a joke. And
okay,
no offense to Winnipeggers, but it's the coldest city I've ever been to in my life.
In the books, he's from Scotland, but that's okay. And he can always call me Felix Leiter because he was the CIA guy in all the Bond books.
So I was in Winnipeg probably 20 years ago teaching a course for Sun Microsystems, and I was sitting in a restaurant in a downtown hotel. I want to say it was a Sheraton, and it was glass from floor to ceiling, and I dang near froze to death. It was minus 40 degrees. So apparently negative 40 Fahrenheit, negative 40 Celsius is where they meet. That's like their intersection. It's the coldest weather I've ever seen in my life. I mean, inside at the restaurant, I had my winter jacket on and was dang near froze to death. But anyway, we shall move on from the 007 debacle, right? Tune in next week to see what the latest email is that we get from somebody offended by calling Jeff 007. All right, so tonight's going to be a pretty easy topic to cover. Thank God we're seeing the end of this Obama third administration. So we picked out what we felt were the top 10 blunders on the part of the Biden administration. And bar none, by far and away, the number one screw up of this administration is the Afghanistan withdrawal. A bunch of amateurs that cost 13 Americans their lives. And who knows how many more lives it's going to cost going forward. If you're new to our podcast, I have a friend of mine who's an international arms dealer. His father-in-law used to be the Minister of Defense in Pakistan. And he was over there sending me screenshots. I think I've told you this, Jeff. The equipment we left behind in Afghanistan was being sold on the street in Pakistan. So an M249 saw, closed bolt, which is like a top of the line machine gun, and on the private market, I don't even know if you could buy one on the private market, but even an old machine gun from the 80s and prior will cost you $35,000 if you have an SOT plus an FFL and all that good stuff. $1,200, Jeff. $1,200 for a closed bolt M249.
Yeah, I was buying toe popper landmines in Afghanistan for $5 a piece because they were selling them in the market for $3 a piece. And I was buying them up just to get them off the market because the last thing they needed was more landmines.
That's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So the problem, why I said, we had 13 troops unnecessarily lose their life on the botched withdrawal. But on top of that, we are now, our law enforcement agencies who fight the cartels, DEA and ICE in particular, are finding weapons that we left behind in Afghanistan and Mexico now because the Hezbollah Unit 410 and the Sinaloan cartel are joined at the hip. And by the way, we had somebody in the comment section a while ago saying that Israel had knocked out Hezbollah, and we were idiots because we felt there was still one unit of Hezbollah. Hezbollah Unit 410 is global.
Yeah.
It's just a name. It doesn't mean it's one unit. It's actually the demarcation point for funding. So Hezbollah in the Middle East is funded by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Hezbollah outside of the Middle East is called Unit 410, and they have to monetize themselves, which is why they've been joined at the hip with cartels for decades now, over 30 years. The long story short is we are retrieving weapons that were left behind by our military and Joe Biden's fuck up. And I mean, apologize for the cuss words this early in a podcast, but there's no other way to look at this. And I can tell you right now, every single time that we have veterans on and this topic comes up, this pisses them off more than anything else. This did not have to go down the way it did. Jeff, give me your high level overview. And then I've got a bunch of bullet points I'm going to rhyme through. Yeah. Statistics will make you puke.
Well, yeah, I served in Afghanistan in 2002, after the invasion. I was a base chief in the north, and I was responsible for 6 provinces. And we had things pretty well, battened down. I mean, the Taliban was gone. We cleaned up the last of the ISIS guys while we were there, or the Al-Qaeda guys while I was there. We did a few renditions, take them off street, put them into prison. And the place was livable. And so it really is frustrating to me to see all the work that we did in those days just get pissed away. And to give these nutcases all, access to all of those weapon systems is just criminal. I mean, and it's going to come back. It's going to come back to bite us in the ass because, like oil, weapons are fungible. You'll sell them. The people will sell them all over the place. And we were buying back stuff that we had given the Mujahideen when they were fighting the Soviets. We were buying back, leftover Stingers and things like that and paying a ton for it. And when I was there, we were buying, SA-7s and HN-5s, which are shoulder fired anti-aircraft missiles. We were paying $5,000 a piece for them, which over there is a huge amount of money.
Very.
But we were doing it to get them off the market, just to get them out of there, because the only airplanes flying were ours, and if you're going to shoot one down, it's going to be ours. So, we did, we were doing it as best as we could to kind of clean up the mess, and now we've left them weapon systems that are 100 times more capable than the stuff we were cleaning up, 25 years ago. So it's frustrating because it's like, it's like stamping out the measles so someone could introduce smallpox.
Yeah, unbelievable. Something else that my buddy showed me on the stuff that was being sold over there, Jeff, were high grade PVS 14s and even PVS 31 night vision rigs. So a decent quality PVS 14 today, $2,500, give or take. I mean, you can spend more, you can spend a little bit less. They were selling for $100, $200, that sort of thing. And the quad PVS 31 rigs, I want to say they're $17,000, $18,000 is what the military pays for them. They were selling for about double what a PVS 14 was. I mean, and that's one of the biggest advantages we had for many years is we could see at night and they could.
We owned the night and they knew it.
Yeah. So check out these stats from Biden's disastrous withdrawal here. Okay. So troop withdrawal. Biden announced the withdrawal of all 2,500 troops from Afghanistan with the process beginning May 1st, 2021 and concluding by September 11th, 2021, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. It's too ironic to be ironic that it would land on that date.
No, they changed it to make it land on that date.
That's what I mean.
Trump's plan was to pull out later. People don't realize Afghanistan for the Taliban. There are 4 seasons. There is planting season, there is fighting season, there is harvest season, and there's winter when nobody does anything because it's all frozen up. And so what Trump's plan is to have the pullout done in the winter or the late fall and winter when the Taliban would be harvesting their crops, their opium or whatever, and then hunkering down for the winter because it gets colder than a witch's breast. and you can't do anything. The passes snow in, they can't go back and forth, so everybody just hunkers down for the winter. And what that would have done would have given the Afghan government 6 months to get its shit together. Well, what Biden did by moving up, because he wanted the symbolic pullout on 9/11, which is, summertime, which is fighting season, we pulled out at the absolute wrong time. It's when all the Taliban, they weren't planting crops, they weren't harvesting, they weren't hunkered down for the winter. It was summertime, they had nothing to do but fight. And the country just disintegrated. And it was all because he wanted the photo op of American troops pulling out on 9/11. Well, what he got was the country imploding before 9/11. And again, the original plan was strategic. His plan was a photo op.
Which is comes down to the worst number of them all. We lost 13 servicemen that didn't need to be lost. And on top of that, by the way, when I was putting all of this information together for this brief, I did not realize 170 Afghanis died on August 26th at the airport where we lost troops. So, I mean, 183 people lost their lives. 13 of them are.
Let's not forget that we also evaporated an innocent Afghan and his entire family because somebody thought he was responsible for the blast. Turns out they got it 100% wrong. They did a strike on his house and killed him, his wife, and like 7 kids. Completely innocent people were evaporated because they had to get even for the bombing, and they got even with the wrong guy.
Yeah. So another interesting kind of side tangent here, and I know you're familiar with this, is that Donald Trump went to Afghanistan unannounced. And when he was negotiating all of this, that we were going to leave, he pulled up his phone and showed one of the Taliban leaders his home and said, "If you fuck with us, I will take you and your entire family out. I know where you live." And, the dealing from strength, unlike Obama and Biden are both, they're all talk, don't. That's their idea of defending something, right? Don't, morons, betas, brutal. But anyway, listen to this. You're going to get a kick out of this. When I was gathering information, and I go across everything, right? Like I'll go from MSNBC to Alex Jones, everything in between. Are you ready for this number? It's in the brief, and I left it in the brief because I planned on mentioning it here. When I went to Chat GPT, and we have memberships for all this stuff, I asked it how much was the dollar value of the equipment we left behind. You ready for this? $7 billion is what Chat GPT said.
Would be surprised.
Every other source, 82 billion.
Yeah.
With no variation, it was 82 billion, no matter how you cut it.
We left attack helicopters, tanks, trucks, Humvees, air defense systems, just unbelievable amounts of weaponry. And even if you take into account that the Pentagon always overpays for everything because it's, the Pentagon, and cut it in half, it's still $40 billion. That would be $40 billion worth of stuff.
Well, I've seen a couple people in the live chat already say 82, 83 billion, and that's what the number was, right? So I left that in just because I wanted to draw a point to Chat GPT is a liberal piece of shit. If you want to get the most woke liberal answer to any question, go to Chat GPT, pay a membership, and see what it will say.
Well, it's the same program that when they said, draw me a picture of the founding fathers, and they were all black.
Yes.
Then they had Nazi soldiers from World War II, and they were all black. And it's like, okay, what's wrong with these pictures?
Well, I mean, as everybody knows, AI can only work inside the parameters that a programmer gives it, right? So they've purposely made Chat GPT in particular very woke. Grok is nowhere near as woke. It's not perfect, but Grok is Elon's AI, which I have a subscription to that as well. I can go to Grok and I can say something like, draw a picture of whoever, somebody who's a high profile person, and it'll do it. If you go to Chat GPT and you ask it to do it, it says, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to make any pictures or likenesses of anybody. So crazy. All right, so moving on to the next bullet. We've got about 4 more bullets here. No pun intended. Public opinion. A Pew Research Center survey conducted in August 2021 found that 54% of American adults believe the decision to withdraw troops was right, although 69% felt the U.S. failed in achieving its goals in Afghanistan. Only 26% rated Biden's handling of the situation as excellent or good, with a significant partisan divide in opinion. So I'm just going to state the obvious here. None of these polls are anywhere near accurate. When you see polls that are released, Ipsos Reid, whoever, it's all with the intention of steering public opinion in one direction or another. And the reason I say that is because our good friend Jason Wilson from voteforamerica.org, he spent over $5 million on his data set since 2015, studying 2 perspectives, the American voter, the American consumer. When he comes back with the real numbers, so he goes under contract to campaigns, those sort of things, to give them information, where people's minds are at, what the percentages are. We're talking like this run up to 2024, where some of the mainstream media was saying, it's neck and neck. It's like 1 or 2 points. It was never 1 or 2 points. Jason Wilson consistently showed Trump around 70% support, give or take. If you get rid of the cheating that still happened in 2024, they just couldn't cheat enough to win. It lines up with those numbers. But anyway, I don't believe that for a second that 26% of Americans rated Biden as doing a good job on the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I've never met a single person who has endorsed Joe Biden's, our retreat is the best word.
All you gotta do is go to Los Angeles.
Right.
Go to California. You'll find them. They're there.
All right. So the next bullet, political impact. The withdrawal had a notable impact on Biden's approval ratings, which took a hit and have not fully recovered, reflecting a perception of mishandling or chaos in the execution of the withdrawal. Well, in addition to very few people being on board with Biden when it happened, I would say that the number of people who disagree with it has only grown over time as people's eyes have been opened up, as we've seen the legacy media basically destroy what little bit of integrity they had left. Nobody believes them anymore. Next one up, I got 2 more to go. Long-term effects post-withdrawal. Afghanistan has been reported to again become a haven for terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And of course, ISIS is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda for those people who don't know that relationship. With the House Foreign Affairs Committee report highlighting these security concerns and attributing them to the withdrawal strategy. So we've had whatever you want to call them. I call them invaders. We've had invaders from 191 countries come across our southern border during Obama's 3rd term here. And the ones from Afghanistan are particularly concerning because of their connections to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Taliban. These are people who've sworn to kill the great Satan. These are people who hate our guts. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the next round of terrorist attacks come. And it's going to be, my prediction is that the next round will be way beyond what the average American could ever imagine is going to happen here. And last one, criticism and reports. Various reports have criticized the timing, planning, and execution of the withdrawal, which claims that the administration prioritized optics over security. The House GOP report accused Biden of misleading the public and not adequately planning for contingencies. It's basically exactly what you already said, optics.
Yep.
And it blew up in their face. So at the end of the day, I personally believe that the botched Afghanistan retreat will go down as the biggest mistake ever made by Joe Biden, which again is Obama's 3rd term. So let's move on to what I believe by far and away is the number 2 debacle, which is the border crisis. Biden's immigration policies have been criticized for leading to increased illegal border crossings, with record numbers reported, and for not adequately addressing the humanitarian security issues at the U.S.-Mexico border. All right, so border crisis, number 1, I don't know if you caught this yesterday, Jeff, but Ali Mayorkas did an interview and basically said his hands were tied. He wanted to lock the border down, but he couldn't because decisions were made at a higher level than him. And he said, once those decisions are made, I had to follow their instructions. That's number 1. Let me give you number 2, and then you can roll with it. there, if you search around out there, use, liberal crap like Google and whatnot, you'll find these numbers that say, oh, Joe Biden only let 5 million people into the country, whatever the numbers are, from J.J. Carroll, 23-year special agent, CBP, Victor Avila, he was another special agent, but with ICE, and the rest of our contacts like Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers. Nobody has an exact number. We never will have an exact number because of the nature of how they cross the border. But the lowest numbers from a reputable source that I've seen peg it at 30 million illegal invaders in our country, and the highest numbers peg it at 50 million. Either way, no matter how you cut it, it's a massive number. And regardless of what people think, who was behind, let's say 9/11, you've got 24 people, hijacked several planes and caused chaos on 9/11. What does even 100,000 out of all those millions? Like J.J. Carroll's got a great way of putting it. He's like, okay, let's say it's low. Let's say it's 30 million. And let's say that 1% of the 30 million are bad guys coming to get us. That's 300,000 people, it's, and then compare that to what happened on 9/11. So, I mean, we could go on and on and on and on, 7 days a week for many weeks with regards to what's happened at our southern border and how it's seditious treason. But give me your high level overview as far as this being one of Biden's biggest failures.
Well, I think it's an even bigger failure than the Afghan pullout, to be quite honest with you, because it seriously impacts every American citizen. And I think Mayorkas's comments are just total garbage. If he really wanted to secure the border and the White House told him not to, then the thing to do is to resign and say, why are you resigning? I wanted to secure the border, and the White House wouldn't let me. They would not let me do the job that I was hired to do and that Congress approved me to do. But he didn't, because he agreed with this crap. He went on TV and lied repeatedly. The border is secure. How many times did we hear that from him? He told it to Congress. He told it to the American public. He lied and lied and lied. And now he's saying, well, I really wanted to do the right thing, but I wasn't allowed to. No one put a gun to your head and said you had to lie to the American public or you had to lie to Congress. And you did both of those of your own volition.
Okay, so 2 questions for you. Number one, what are the chances that sometime between now and midday on Monday that Biden gives Mayorkas a preemptive pardon? And number 2, is it possible that Mayorkas went on the news circuit yesterday to lie about the decisions being made above? He had no control, as a backstop, like as a second insurance policy, just in case Joe Biden doesn't give him a preemptive pardon?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of pardons flying in the next 48 hours. But I think what would really be ironic is if we find out later that Biden was going to pardon Mayorkas, but when Mayorkas tried to throw him under the bus, he changed his mind. And then Mayorkas gets prosecuted for lying to Congress, which he clearly did, and ends up going to jail for it.
Two words: poetic justice.
Yes.
All I can think of.
Irony can be a good thing sometimes. But no, he should be prosecuted for violating the law, for not enforcing the law he was sworn to enforce, and for lying to Congress. He blatantly lied to Congress multiple times, and they need to hold him in contempt, get his ass arrested, and throw him in the clink. They did it to Steve Bannon for just saying, I can't talk about that because of presidential privilege. They threw his butt in jail. So, and he didn't lie. He just said, I can't talk about stuff I'm not allowed to talk about.
So a couple points on this. Mayorkas was born in Cuba. He's no longer a citizen of Cuba. He is a citizen of Israel and America, dual citizen between those two countries. Number one, that always makes me suspicious when somebody's a dual citizen, where their loyalties truly lie.
Yeah.
But the next part to this, and you're aware of this, and a good portion of our audience is now aware of this, Ali Mayorkas does not have a valid oath of office. And Todd Callender's team, research team, were the first ones to discover this. They did FOIAs on everybody who's been part of Biden's cabinet over the past 4 years. Goose egg, not one person with a valid oath of office. So when Todd starts telling me this in offline conversations, I'm not an attorney. And I said to him, I said, well, okay, well, what are the implications of that? Like, why does it matter in the grand scheme of things, like from a legal perspective? And he said, well, if you have a valid oath of office, which, by the way, Mayorkas's, I have a copy of it. I've got a 70 some odd page PDF with all the FOIA stuff on this. And he sent his oath of office in, but he didn't notarize it. So because it wasn't notarized, it's not valid. Okay. Right. So when I said to Todd, like, what's the implication of this? He said, well, if you're a government official who has committed treason and you're convicted of that, you face the death penalty. If, on the other hand, you have an invalid oath of office, you are not officially a representative or a member of the American government. And the biggest charge you could face would be being an imposter, which carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in jail. So Todd basically said what's happened here in Obama's third term with all these cabinet members is they were putting a contingency in place in case Donald Trump or somebody else got in office who went after them for doing all of these treasonous things. So, I mean, that's the legal reasoning behind it, justification, but we'll move on from there. Number 3 on our list is inflation and economic policies. So high inflation rates, described as some of the highest in decades, have been attributed to Biden's economic policies, including significant government spending, which has impacted the cost of living for many Americans. So you give away ginormous sums of money to wealthy people and disguised as, PPP loans and grants and EIDL loans and grants. Actually, I think EIDL are just loans. I don't think any of the EIDL stuff, economic, I can't remember what the EIDL stands for anymore because it's been a few years, but regardless, they overheated the economy by pouring all that free money into it, number one. And then somebody recently said something like, oh, the executive has no control over inflation. Okay. So what happened to the price of gasoline when the Keystone XL was shut down? It started the whole process of the runaway pricing on gas, where it got to over twice as expensive as it was under Trump. It's simple economics, supply and demand. If you cut back supply and you don't cut back demand, prices go up. It's not complex. I'm a college dropout, and I know that, for crying out loud. So the other parts of this, and we've spoken frequently, and then I'm going to turn number 3 over to you, is that core inflation rate for over 30 years has been a bullshit number. It does not include food, fuel, and housing. Okay. The 3 things that annihilate Americans' paychecks. So core inflation means absolutely nothing. And they came up with a whole story on why it's more important to do it that way. And it's all bullshit. Then you've got the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is supposed to include all of those things. But the problem is every administration, doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, uses core inflation and CPI to present false arguments. So sorry for mentioning this again to SDN regulars, but last summer, the wholesale cost of coffee jumped 29% in 1 month. The Biden admin took it out of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, because, oh, God forbid, make the number look higher. The fact of the matter is, depending on whose numbers you want to believe, the lowest number for food inflation during Obama's third term is 21% compounded year over year. And the highest number is 41% compounded year over year. So when anybody asks me, what's the actual inflation rate as it pertains to food, I go with 31%. It's right in the middle. So your thoughts on inflation and economic policies from a community organizer, known as Barry Sotero.
Okay, first of all, only the government can cause inflation, because inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. And the only one who can print money is the government. Therefore, when you have too much physical money out there, it's because the government decided to print it. And the reason they print it is because they can only get money 3 ways. They can tax, they can borrow, or they can print. When you borrow, you got to pay it back. That's our national debt. If you tax it, you piss people off, so you just print it. They think it's victimless, but it's not. And inflation is just a tax. It's just a different kind of tax, and it affects everybody. The CPI taking out, housing, fuel, and food is like saying, okay, we have a violent crime rate, but we don't count murder, rape, or assault. And since we don't count those, our violent crime rate is actually pretty low. Well, what's left for violent crime rate? Okay, maybe petty assault or something, but yeah, it's stupid. It is just stupid. It's just so they can say inflation isn't high when they know it is.
Funny you should correlate that to crime, because number 6 on the list is crime, and we've got some stuff to say on that. Number 4. So here's what I did, by the way. When I went from, one AI to another, one search engine to another, I asked it to rank these things, right? So I think it was Grok, put Build Back Better as the number 4. And I don't know that I'm really buying that, because that was all just BS anyway. So the claim is that the failure to pass the Build Back Better Act in its entirety is seen as a legislative defeat, highlighting Biden's challenges in navigating through a divided Congress. My personal opinion is that what was passed as part of the Build Back Better Act, which is total BS. It was the same thing Justin Trudeau, and I know his name's Trudeau. We call him Turdo because he's a turd. And all the other WEF clowns actually fueled the inflation. This was very socialist government spending stuff, right? So I don't know that I agree with Build Back Better Act being this high on the list. I do agree that what parts of it were implemented definitely fueled inflation. And if the whole thing had been passed, which was essentially the new Green Deal in a different, bow tie, inflation would have only been worse. So thoughts on Build Back Better bullshit? That rhymes pretty good too.
It was half a bill, and it should have been no bill. It was garbage. And all it was handouts for all the Democrats' pet projects. We saw it again later with the Inflation Reduction Act. Build Back Better just pumped billions upon billions of dollars into boondoggle green energy programs that never did anything. They didn't reduce greenhouse emissions. They didn't provide cheaper electricity. They did nothing that they said they would do. And that's the epitome of a government program. They always do the exact opposite of the stated purpose.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Like the when there's a bill titled the Inflation Reduction Act, it's going to do anything but reduce inflation, right?
Absolutely.
And I can't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me on this. I want to say it was either $45 billion or $65 billion was part of the Build Back Better BS to build charging stations across the country for EVs. And I don't remember what the number is, but it's something ridiculously low. Like there were 2 charging stations.
6.
Yeah.
6 charging stations were built for like $8.7 billion
each.
Well, no, they were supposed to build thousands. We gave them $8 billion or $9 billion to do it, and they built 6.
Okay. Yeah,
so they're about $1 billion a pop.
Absolute insanity, right? Okay, so let's go to number 5. Foreign policy missteps. Apart from Afghanistan, Biden's approach to international relations, including the handling of the Ukraine conflict and relations with China and Iran, has faced scrutiny for perceived weakness or concessions. So my comments on this is that we had Iran basically shut down to the point where they did not pose a big threat. And the Biden admin, the Obama Biden admin, released holds on billions of dollars of money that went back to Iran, and Iran shortly thereafter started providing rockets to the Yemeni Houthis and ramping up their rhetoric, and they're going to get Donald Trump, for killing Soleimani, blah, 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 blah. This is, in my opinion, so you got Jimmy Carter, you got one exception maybe with Bill Clinton, then you got Obama, Hillary, Biden, absolute putzes on the international stage, and nobody was scared of them at all. Obama, remember when Putin went into the Crimea Peninsula and he's like, yeah, don't do that. Okay, that stopped nothing, right? And then Biden, what do you tell Iran, President Biden? Don't. Okay, yeah, because that's really scary shit. It's the exact opposite of what Reagan did and what Trump did. And don't get me wrong, George W. Bush Sr. and Jr., neither one of them was a great statesman either. But it doesn't matter who the adversary is, even who the ally is. As far as I'm concerned, under Obama and Biden, we have been perceived to be much weaker. And the steps that people have taken against us, other countries have taken against us, are a direct result of that weakness. Your thoughts on foreign policy?
Well, it's been a disaster for a long time. Iran was on the verge of complete economic collapse due to sanctions and things like that. So what does Biden do? He flies in pallets of cash. I mean, we're talking billions upon billions of $100 bills to dump into their economy, which they then could use to buy stuff and get their economy back on track and support Hamas, Hezbollah, the government in Syria, the Houthis, all the terrorist groups. And how is that not material support for terrorism? If anyone not in the government had done 0.1% of what our own government did, they'd be in prison, rightfully so. We used our tax dollars to support terrorists.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And to help them get a nuclear weapon, which they'll probably have in a year or so.
All right.
Okay.
Already. Moving on to number 6, crime and public safety. So you already alluded to some of this, but this is particularly disturbing. There's criticism over the administration's handling of rising crime rates in cities, with some arguing that there's been inadequate support for law enforcement or effective policy responses. So here's the deal, is that the Biden admin worked behind the scenes with officials from multiple jurisdictions to not report their crime stats to the FBI. So then Merrick Garland and the rest of the clowns did the tours on mainstream media, legacy media, saying violent crime is down. Well, when you don't count murders and rapes and assaults in LA and Cook County, which is Chicago, and New York City and all these other cities, yeah, it paints the illusion of it. But I know you've got a great take on this, so I'm not going to mention your angle as far as how you can tell that it's going up. But what I will say is that we finally got data from 2022 to the FBI about 6 months ago, and it showed exactly what we all knew all along, that violent crime is absolutely skyrocketed under this administration. Big part of it being tied to George Soros and Alex Soros and their DAs. But tell me how you deduced it multiple times. If this is happening, violent crime's going up, end of story. You're on mute, Jeff. You're on mute.
Don't give me credit for this. I heard from someone else and it made a lot of sense. He goes, look at car theft. Because people report car thefts because for the insurance claims. Yeah, if someone breaks a window in your house, you may say, screw it, the cops aren't going to come out anyway. I'm not going to call them. And I'm not going to turn that one into my insurance because it'll just make my homeowner's insurance go up. So hell with it, I'll fix it myself. But when someone steals your car and you've got 40 grand dropped into a car, you're going to report it to your insurance company.
Yeah.
So all the time they were saying all this crime rate, all the crime was going down. Car thefts, as reported by insurance companies who had to pay for it, were going through the roof. And that's how you know. There's no way that you have car thefts go through the roof and all other crime drops.
Yeah.
No way.
It's brilliant. It's a great way of looking at it. And that's the whole thing with Obama's, first 2 terms and this third shadow term. It's not hard to verify that they're lying. Yeah. I mean, actually 99% of the time with Obama and Biden, whatever they're accusing their adversary of is exactly what they've been doing. And it's a tactic. I think, was it Bill Ayers that Obama was a big fan of on how to convert America to socialism? And one of the steps in there is accuse your adversary of doing all the things that you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay. Number 7. Yeah. Number 7, energy policy. Decisions like canceling the Keystone XL pipeline and other restrictive policies on domestic energy production are criticized for increasing energy dependence and contributing to higher gas prices. We already touched on this. You know, the crazy thing is when Obama came out hard against Keystone XL, he was like, you know, we can't allow this because of environmental concerns for Native American reserves and blah, 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 blah. It's been so long now, I don't remember the numbers. I would have to look them up. But because Keystone XL was shut down this time around, as well as when Obama was originally making the case for shutting it down, all of that oil has to be shipped by semis, by transports. And when you take the average number of wrecks that involve a spill for gasoline or oil, the discrepancy is incredible. In other words, way more hazardous to ship stuff on our interstates than to send it down a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And again, for anybody, for you already made the case, but forever says that you know, Biden didn't increase energy costs is blind. As soon as he shut down these things, it reduced supply without reducing demand. And I guess I would say the last part on that is the irony. If you pull up a map of all of the pipelines in America, there's a gazillion of them crisscrossing our country. But this Keystone XL was going to be like the end of everything, the end of the environment. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, yeah, what they did is they ended up shipping most of that oil either to the west coast of Canada, which then it went on to Canada, I mean, to China, who then refined it with like no environmental measures whatsoever, or they put it on trains and sent it down to refineries in the United States, which only increased the cost because it's more expensive to move it by train than move it by pipeline, and increase the number of accidents because trains are not. Pipeline is the safest way to move a liquid, period. It is. And when Trump left office, we were self-sufficient. We were an oil exporter.
Right.
And we hadn't been an oil exporter since the 60s. But and they've reversed all that. And it is just insanity that we are buying oil from our enemies, be it Venezuela or some of these Middle Eastern states, rather than producing it here at home.
Well, how about emptying our strategic oil reserve, which is for our military? And that was in the grand scheme of things, a very minimal amount of oil, right? Like if you drained all the reserves, it wouldn't be enough to supply the country for a few days, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So smoke and mirrors more so than anything, but weaken our military. And then the next point, I'd like somebody in the audience, because I know that people in the insider community know this number, but the Chinese open something like or start up a brand new coal energy plant every few days. I think that like they build 100 a year. So that would be every 3.5 days.
A week.
Yeah. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure, in the chat, but I've caught some stuff on that. But go ahead and run with the strategic oil reserve. That was treasonous.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, and the reason he did it was to lower gas prices before the 2022 election. And that's all it was, because inflation was taking off. People were complaining. So he dumped, millions of barrels of oil onto the market in the hopes of driving down prices. And it really didn't drive down prices that much. And Democrats are so stupid when it comes to energy. At the end of Trump's term, when we had a glut of oil, in fact, there was more oil than they had storage for it. So companies were literally paying people to take the oil off their hands. Trump wanted to spend, I think it was $25 billion to buy up all this oil for next to nothing. And then just to completely top out the strategic oil reserve, which are these big underground salt caverns. And he says, we can fill it for next to nothing. Actually, I don't even think it was billions. It may have just been in the millions, because you were literally getting it for like $1 a barrel. And the Democrats in Congress would not approve it. So he basically said, let's buy oil when it's free or damn near free, and then we'll save it from when we really need it. Democrats said no. You get a Democrat in power, what he does is he takes our strategic oil reserve, what we have, and takes it down to the lowest level in 20 years. And it's not because there was an economic necessity for it. It was because he wanted to lower oil prices before the election.
Right. So
Really selfish stuff.
Good Morning Venezuela brings up a good point. It's hard to cherry pick his failures down to just 10. There are so many. Did he actually make a decision? I believe his 10 biggest accidents were in his pants. So good choice of words. That's funny stuff. I only caught bits and pieces of this, so I don't want to swear to it 100%, but there's an interview going around with Mike Johnson right now, the Speaker of the House, who we are not big fans of, where he had a meeting with Biden, and it took him a long, long time to get a meeting. I want to say it was like 6 months to actually get the administration to agree to a meeting. And there were multiple people sitting in this meeting, kind of quarterbacking the conversation. And Mike Johnson was asking about Biden's policies on LNG, liquid natural gas. And Biden looked at his handlers and said, I want all of you to leave. I need to have a private conversation with the speaker. And Mike Johnson said, all their jaws hit the ground like, oh my God, he's going to be by himself. Lord only knows what he'll say. So Mike Johnson said, why did you do this? Why did you shut this down? And Biden's response was, I didn't do that. And as far as Mike Johnson's concerned, he didn't do it because Obama's been running the show and all of his minions, right? And it's just it goes hand in hand with the comment Good Morning Venezuela made that he probably didn't make the decision because he wasn't in a decision-making role really for the most part. That Obama tried to keep him contained. Next one is a big issue that he just can't seem to leave alone, pardon me. Student loan forgiveness. The promise of student loan debt forgiveness has faced significant legal and political challenges, not materializing as planned, leading to disappointment among young voters. So this is an attempt to buy votes. And the Supreme Court even said, you can't do that. You can't forgive all of this. And then he comes at it from a different angle, trying to forgive billions of dollars. What a slap in the face to those people who paid their way through university and college, paid back any loans that they had, and, delayed their purchase of their first home because they had all this debt hanging over them that they paid back. But for everybody else, we'll just give it away for free. This has got Obama's fingerprints all over it and is complete and utter bullshit. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'm old school. I went to college. I had a scholarship at first. I lost it because I discovered beer. My grades dropped too low. But I worked. I worked in restaurants. I worked in bars. I was a bouncer, a bartender, a cook, everything else. And it took me longer to get through college because of that. And that's not on anybody but me. And I paid for that. And I paid everything off. But what you're doing when you forgive student loans is you're putting the money on the backs of people who either went to college and paid their own loans off, or people who never went to college. Why should a guy who became a welder have to pay for your degree in gender women's study from Columbia?
Right.
College is a business decision. If you decide to go and borrow a bunch of money for a degree that is totally worthless, that is nobody's problem but yours. And
Amen.
deal with it.
Could not agree more. Number 9, voting rights legislations. Efforts to pass significant voting rights legislation have been unsuccessful, with bills stalling in Congress, particularly due to a lack of bipartisan support. I don't know that I personally feel that this is like amongst his top 10 fuck ups because there's so many of them. All I've got to say on this one is we are the only advanced country, and most second and third world countries beat us here as well. You have to have ID to vote in almost every country in the world, especially every developed country, number one. Number two, it's downright racist to say that black people can't be required to show a driver's license because they don't have them. They won't be able to vote. They don't have ID. I've never met a black person in my entire life who didn't have ID. I mean, it's super insulting, right? And here's the thing. If you've got, 1.3, 1.4 billion people in India, somewhere around 800 million of them can vote. They all show ID. They all vote on paper ballots, and it's all calculated in the same day with none of the shenanigans going on. I think anything and everything that the Democrats have touched in relation to voting legislation is outright theft. It's complete BS.
They don't want legitimate elections because they'll lose legitimate elections.
Amen. The 10th point, again, this isn't really one of his top 10 biggest mistakes, but whatever. It is Joe Biden that we're discussing. Public speaking and gaffes. Biden's numerous public speaking gaffes and misstatements have been highlighted, contributing to perceptions of his capabilities and leading to concerns over his age and fitness for office. So some of us are old enough to remember in the 1988 primary that Biden got in a pissing contest with somebody, and it was all captured on video. And he said, I graduated top of my class and I got 4 degrees and blah, blah. And then putting this other person down, lo and behold, he had 1 degree, not 4. He didn't have a scholarship. He didn't graduate at the top of his class. He graduated like 76th out of 80 or something like that. And he had also plagiarized a speech that some British politician had used. Joe Biden has never held a regular job his entire life. He's been a bottom-dwelling government official for 50 plus years. He's made millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars by selling influence to foreign governments like China, Ukraine. Even before he had dementia, he was a pathological liar. And the problem I have with people who voted for Biden, and 81 million people did not vote for Biden, we know that, but some morons did vote for Biden, is that you don't have to do much homework to discover what a lying sack of shit Joe Biden has been his entire career. I mean, his feigned anger and stuff like that, I can't even listen to it. It pisses me off that anybody could think, yeah, this is my guy. How can he be your guy? You got to be a moron. I was told in the run-up to the 2020 election I needed to tone it down with regards to my stance on Joe Biden because I was making members of our family feel like I was specifically calling them idiots. And I said, you know what? I'm sticking to my guns on this. If you vote for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, you are a fucking idiot. So I don't know if you want to comment on his gaffes or anything, but feel free to roll with it.
Biden's been running for president forever. Biden's been around. I mean, I'm older than everybody else on this show. And, I've seen him start a campaign and have to drop out because they caught him lying. They caught him plagiarizing speeches, lying about his academic record and everything else. He gets embarrassed, and then he ends up dropping out. And Biden or Obama said it the best. Don't underestimate Joe's ability to fuck it up.
Yeah,
because he's not a smart person.
Oh, come on now.
He's a moron.
He is.
He lies so much. I don't even think he realizes he's lying anymore. It just becomes part of his personal story, and he's lied so much that he believes his own bullshit.
He does, and absolutely, he 100% believes his own bullshit. But that's the end of chapter 1. We've got a short message from one of our sponsors, Sawyer Products. We'll be right back.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right, so the next topic up is something that we've been discussing for well over 2 years now, and that's drones. So I don't know if you caught this or not, Jeff, but DJI, Chinese-made drones, they own about 90% of the market here in America. They've been forbidden by the government to be used by government agencies, but all kinds of government agencies have DJI drones. This week, they pushed an update out to all of their drones. And by the way, DJI, if they mark an update as being mandatory, you can't even fly your drone until you apply the patch. It's not all of them, but it's many of them. Okay. So the update that was pushed to DJI this week, or to their drones here in America, is they remove what's called geofencing. And geofencing means that, hey, that's restricted airspace. You can't fly in that area, right? Well, that geofencing is now gone from any DJI drone that's capable of flying in America. And I have a couple theories on this, but just quickly. So drones are, as we've seen in Ukraine, this is the next wave of war, right? It's a low barrier to entry with the capacity to do some really crazy things. So DJI's update dropping some geofencing restrictions isn't about politics, the company says. Well, here's my opinion on this, Jeff, and then you tell me what you think. Number one, there will be honest mistakes made by people, and they will fly these drones into restricted airspace, not on purpose, okay? Every time somebody does that not on purpose, ET is calling home. All of these drones are now relaying that information from in restricted airspace back to the CCP, okay? So number one, the CCP is going to use this to increase aerial surveillance of restricted areas because of that. Number one. Number two, there are going to be people who fly into those restricted areas knowing full well that they're not supposed to. Then they'll do a mea culpa, say, oh, I didn't know. I thought the drones couldn't fly in restricted areas. And that information will be relayed back to the CCP. And then the third part of this is the concern that we've raised is the original open source software written in Hollywood called Drone Swarm that allowed one operator to control up to 5,000 drones simultaneously is now capable of controlling up to 15,000 drones simultaneously. So you can take let's call it a middle of the road DJI drone that they fly 80 miles an hour, and you've got someone within a 20-mile circumference. Typically you have to be within 20 miles with the controllers, that, let's say, flies 24 of them into Mar-a-Lago, 24 of them into the White House, whatever the case may be, loaded up with explosives. It'll kill everybody inside that easily. And so there's a huge security threat as a result of this as well. This is one of the most provocative things I think that the Chinese government has done in recent times that has some really major implications for us and Donald Trump and security in general. What's your theory on why DJI pushed this update?
I think part of it is it's just basically giving a big up years to the U.S. government, because they're talking about banning all these drones. And they're like, well, if you're going to ban them, there's still a bunch of them flying around. And we've been playing by the rules in the hopes of keeping our market. But if we're going to lose our market, screw you. Let people fly them wherever the hell they want to fly them. And the other one is that when they do fly into these things, and the drones are, are they looking at our response? Are they, they sending, letting innocent U.S. citizens send these drones into restricted airspace just to see what the government response is? It's a great probe. It's a recon. It's a reconnoiter.
Yes.
So they got a bunch of reasons for doing it. And since they're talking about banning them from the country anyway, they don't give a rat's ass if they piss us off. They're losing their markets anyway. But all those drones are still going to be here. They're not taking the drones back. They just can't sell any more. And there's thousands of these things flying around. Yeah,
Potentially. I would be really surprised to see if they kick DJI out of the country entirely. But again, the federal government's already said government agencies are not allowed to use these drones because they relay information back to the CCP. And there is a shit ton of law enforcement, for example, that use DJIs. And the drones that are made in the US are just as good as the DJI, but the prices are super high because of lack of economies of scale, right?
Right.
90% of the drones in America are from this company, and it's a scary proposition. Drones are a big concern, and until we have things like widespread directed energy weapons, whether it is a concentrated EMP strike or microwave radiation, whatever the case may be, until we have weapons like that en masse, these will continue to pose a ginormous security threat for us. So moving on to the next one. And by the way, if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, you can download 50% of our sit reps, daily sit reps, situation reports, which we use as the brief for each of these episodes. Tonight's is 49 pages long. There's no way we'll get through every single thing in it. It's a highly curated daily newspaper, for lack of a better term. Tonight's is restricted to paying members only, $9.99 a month, and you can get it there. There's other benefits that I'll cover later on. So what to expect in the first days of the Trump presidency. So we've got news now that Chicago in particular is going to be hit with a massive deportation operation, upwards of 200 ICE agents alone on Tuesday morning, workplace raids, deep state sabotage, which we could do multiple episodes on that. And here's all I'm going to say on that is, did you have a chance to see the videos of Lloyd Austin and Merrick Garland leaving their offices for the last time yesterday? Every last one of those pieces of shit who's seen supporting them needs to be fired. They need to be, there's where you start gutting. There's where Doge needs to start just cutting like nuts. If you're an idiot enough to support Lloyd Austin or Merrick Garland, you have no position in our government. You need to be thrown to the curb, gone. Your thoughts on deportations and deep state sabotage, Jeff? It's going to happen right away.
Deportation needs to start immediately, like Tuesday or even Monday night, and just start. And I think when you start it, you'll see a lot of self-deportations because people are going to be, okay, if I have enough time to sell whatever I have and I get back home, I don't lose it. As far as the people in the government, like all those people cheering Lloyd Austin and all that, man, take that video, you put it through facial recognition, you find out who they are, and a lot of those people need to go because those are the loyalists. And if they're not loyalists, they're not doing their job because they're downstairs watching the boss leave the building. Okay, that's not your job. But yeah, and anyone who runs interference, they say it's 42%, that's a good start. Let's fire all of them. And that'll reduce the manpower in the government by 42%, which is probably close to where it needs to be anyway. Actually, I think it's probably over 50.
So, yeah, I mean, this is going to sound bad. I don't really give a shit. Here's the video of Merrick Garland. I'll play it in just a second. So Merrick Garland has tears in his eyes. He's crying and people are giving him fist bumps. And all I could think of watching this is this Weasley son of a bitch never played football or any sports. Nobody's ever given him fist bumps and high fives. And that's why he's crying in this thing. He's just this is a really bad dude, man. He's done some horrible things to our country with lawfare. And here's the thing. I think that these people like him who probably got stuffed in lockers when they were in high school, then go on and get into roles like this and use it as an opportunity to pay back all the cool kids who locked them, put them in the lockers or gave them swirlies or whatever the case may be. I don't know if that was a thing when you were in high school, but
we know. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else who's wondering, it's not complicated. Just look it up. It has to do with washing your hair in a commode. But anyway, let's play part of this. I can't play the whole thing. I truly, if there's anybody I truly despise from the Biden admin, it would be Merrick Garland, Lloyd Austin, and Pete Buttplug. Can't stand him at all. And Ali Mayorkas. Those would be like my top four. But check this out. This is the kid who got stuffed in lockers. Nobody ever gave him a high five. And this is his one and only minute of getting that type of admiration. You see him crying?
Beta male being cheered by a bunch of other betas.
Every last one of them firing block immediately. It's got to happen. I've got the one coming up for Lloyd Austin too, but I went ahead in the program and pulled that one back just because we were talking about. Here's the report, or one of the reports at least, on Tuesday. Trump plans huge Chicago illegal immigrant raid, and this is in direct response to their garbage mayor, Brendan Johnson, saying that he's going to protect all the illegals, and they don't even support kicking criminals out of the frickin' country. I mean, if that's not anti-American, what is, Jeff?
It is anti-American. I mean, for Christ's sakes,
how do you
protect the citizens of your country?
Right. How do you justify letting these shitbags stay in our country?
Or break up families. Yeah.
So we've spent most of the past week covering the fires in California. I've got a short video here, minute 40 seconds. I won't play the whole thing, but former Wall Street broker Ross Mandel says the Los Angeles Pacific Palisade fires were planned. I'm going to shock you. People from BlackRock are going door to door offering to buy homes. This is highly organized. You think this happened by accident? The dams have been emptied by Governor Newsom for no good reason. The hydrants are empty for no good reason.
I'm going to comment about this, and I'm going to shock you. People from BlackRock are going door to door offering to buy homes now. They say, whatever you do with the insurance company is your business. Fix what you want or don't. Here's a price we're willing to pay for your home now. BlackRock is going door to door. You think this happened by accident? The dams have been emptied by Governor Newsom for no good reason. The hydrants are empty for no good reason. LA had its rainiest season this year since the 20s. And almost 90 years, 100 years ago, was the rainiest season, and there's no water in the reservoirs.
Thoughts on his accusations?
Well, if what he's saying is true, you got to ask yourself why and how.
Well, let's put it this way: we can't verify what this gentleman is saying, but we can comment on. Here's straight up: would it surprise you if it was determined that he was telling the truth?
No, not really.
Okay, that says it all. I mean, we've devolved to the point where that's not unbelievable. Yeah. All right. LA mayor says no thanks to fire relief because Elon helped. Wildfires left LA firefighters scrambling without Wi-Fi or cell service to coordinate their efforts. Elon stepped in, sending Starlink-equipped Cybertrucks to restore communications. The mayor's office asked for help too, but once Karen Bass figured out Elon was involved, she shut it down. Turns out saving lives takes a backseat to personal grudges. I don't know if you want to comment on this or not, Jeff.
It's criminal.
She's a low IQ DEI, deal that was essentially appointed through a rigged primary process and a rigged election. All right, next one up. It is here, literally the next business day. The difference is in 2024, the evidence is there. There is now hard evidence that there was election interference by U.S. intelligence agencies and the Department of Justice. They've got to be terrified. Those individuals have to be terrified that a Republican president comes in 2024 election with a Republican attorney general, investigates them, and charges them all with the crimes they've committed within the last 8 years. 1 minute, 2 second video. I probably won't play all of it.
Now have black and white evidence that the FBI interfered in the 2016 election. And then when they failed to get their candidate elected, Hillary Clinton, then they just set out to destroy the Trump administration. So then go up to 2020. It was the CIA this time that got involved in the 2020 election with those 51 former intel agents who talked about the Hunter Biden laptop as total Russian disinformation. So they've gotten away with it for 2 elections. They're for sure going to get away with it, try to get away with it in 24, right? Because there's no consequence. The difference is in 2024, the evidence is there. We now have the Durham investigation. We have all the congressional investigations. There is now hard evidence that there was election interference by the U.S. intelligence agencies and the Department of Justice. They've got to be terrified. Those individuals have to be terrified.
Thoughts on what comes out of investigations on election integrity, Jeff?
I hope to God there's some convictions. I mean, I know a couple of the people who signed that stupid letter. I call them the Dirty 51.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of them that were active employees of the U.S. intelligence service when they did it, which is a violation of the Hatch Act. They need to be arrested. They need to be tried, convicted, and put in prison for that and lose their damn pensions. It is, if they're retired, okay, you're retired. You can say what you want to say. You can lie, you can do whatever you want. But if you're an active U.S. government employee and you do that stuff, you need to go to prison. And you send one to prison or one or two of those guys to prison, I'll tell you what, people in the future will pause before they decide to do that crap again. You need to make examples of them. And all the ones who did sign it, who were retired, but they're working as contractors for these defense industry people, yank all their clearances. None of them should be allowed to work for the United States government again in any capacity, directly or indirectly.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not going to say that Trump is going to fall short, but I believe if he does fall short on this stuff, if heads don't roll over election integrity, Afghanistan withdrawal, all of these things, I think he's going to lose a significant portion of his support. On the one hand, I think Pam Bondi she's wicked intelligent. She's a really good attorney, but I don't have faith in Pam Bondi because we had her here in Florida and she was hardcore in support of red flag laws. And I can't get behind somebody who supports red flag laws at all. So I guess time will tell. We shall see what happens. All right. Next one up, McKinney, Texas. That's where I used to train every Saturday. With my good buddy, Mike Womack, the bench daddy. There was about 30 of us, all world record holders, who trained every Saturday morning in McKinney at Lockout Supplements. Anyway, it's happening. McKinney, Texas, seen transporting large amounts of U.S. Border Patrol vehicles. We are just 3 days away from the largest deportation project in history, and preparations are beginning. 12-second video. They are lining up the resources and getting ready to knock them down. And speaking of which, this just reminded me of a funny story, Jeff. So a buddy of mine's son was getting into powerlifting and he wanted to go train with me in McKinney on a Saturday. So I went and picked him up and we took the George Bush Turnpike up. And when we were coming into McKinney, and keep in mind, I'm driving at the time, a 2014 3/4 ton 4x4 Suburban with windows blacked out from the factory. Everybody used to call it my FBI truck, right? And so we end up at this intersection, and it's the intersection I need to turn right to go to Lockout Supplements. And I noticed that the cops have the intersection closed because there's a bicycle race happening. And I see the cop talking to the guy in front of me. And when he's done, I had my window down. I hollered at him and I said, "Hey," I said, "how long is this intersection going to be closed?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "Could be 5 minutes, could be half an hour until the last bike comes through." And I said, "Well, do you mind if I hop the curb right here and cut through this parking lot?" So there was a gas station with a Circle K, I think it was. And he said, "Nah, not at all. Go ahead," because it spit me out on the other road that I wanted to be on. So my buddy's son is sitting there and we jump the curb and he starts laughing. So this particular gas station, illegals would gather there every day, and you could take them to do work for literally like $10-15 a day sort of thing. So picture this: a blacked out Suburban pulls up, cop comes and talks to the guys in the blacked out Suburban. The Suburban jumps the curb and starts cutting through the parking lot where all the illegals are. It was like cockroaches scattering. It just went everywhere. And Blake's sitting there fumbling around with his dang phone. I wish he had caught it on video. It's one of the funniest things I ever saw. So anyway, Moving on from there, reports are emerging that more than a dozen local police departments have refused to help DC police guard President Trump's inauguration. This is likely why the ceremony is getting moved inside. Maybe part of the reason. George Behizzi here is pretty good with his information, but who the fuck do these people think they are? You know, the duly elected president of the United States, and they're going to snub their nose at him and not protect our president. Those people all need to be fired too.
Yeah, that's when you say, hey, about that federal grant that you applied for. Shame what happened to it. It just went away.
There have to be consequences. There have to be consequences. Next one here actually belongs in chapter 3, so I'm not going to play that one. Move on to the next one here. Scott Jennings reports that deportations are set to begin immediately when Trump takes over. It's what the American people asked for. Get the violent folks out of our country ASAP. 2-minute video. I'm not going to play it because you can go grab the sit rep for tonight and play it if you want. Next one up. Another example why Trump won in a landslide. Government officials at all levels have sacrificed women and children at the altar of fake women. They harass, stalk, maim, sexually assault, and kill innocent people as our officials sit by, idly by, and do nothing. Change is coming, you perverted pigs. 58-second video.
These policies were perfectly safe. See, Loudoun County, Virginia, a trans student was allowed into the women's bathroom where he assaulted a girl. They moved him to another school where he did it again. See, Irvine, California last month, where a trans student entered the women's locker room and flashed the girls there. When they confronted him, he mercilessly beat them. This happened again in Gwinnett County, Georgia. This happened again in Oklahoma City. This happened again in Ohio, where a trans man was allowed to use the locker room where he was arrested for flashing little girls. The judge dropped the charges after he ruled that this man was too fat for them to see anything. In this city, a man using they, them pronouns hunted down and killed a female jogger because he, quote, wanted to look just like her. You will no longer be able to look into the eyes of your constituents and honestly say that you are unaware of the assaults that inevitably take place when we declare to women, you have no right to privacy. These policies.
I don't know. There's much to say on this other than this is just insanity. It's part of the irregular asymmetric warfare being waged against us by our enemies to divide our nation, and they're succeeding at it with this kind of nonsense. Next one up, just a quick notice on Ukrainian drones target Russian oil depots. Fires erupt. Multiple oil depots across Russia's Kaluga, Tula, Saratov, and Vrozhne regions have been targeted by what are reported to be Ukrainian drone attacks. Visual confirmations show significant fires and explosions at these facilities, including a major oil depot in Ludi Nova Kaluga region, with reports of no anti-aircraft response during the attacks. The incidents have affected oil storage and refinery infrastructure, highlighting vulnerabilities in Russian defense and civilian infrastructure. So I'll just use this as another opportunity to point out that there is no great defense against these small drones at all. We're in the infancy of trying to figure out how to conduct war both against and with drones. And to be quite frank, it's like Elon said, and I don't trust Elon anymore after some of the shit he's done recently, but he had a good point when he went through the numbers of like an F-35 and what it takes for a pilot to get to the level that they can, train, how many millions it costs to train them up versus what's spent on drones. F-35 isn't going to be work at all against a swarm of drones. It's a changing world, put it that way. All right, UK government announces local inquiries into grooming gangs. Check this out. Finally, somebody's doing the right thing, but some interesting numbers on this. The UK government, led by Homeland Secretary Yvette Cooper, has announced a series of government-backed local inquiries into grooming gangs focused on child sexual exploitation, despite the initiative, which includes a £10 million fund to aid investigations. It has been met with criticism for its limited scope, covering only 5 towns and lacking statutory powers to compel witnesses. Critics, including MPs, member of parliaments from various parties, argue for a full national inquiry to adequately address the issue nationwide. So for over 20 years now, there have been these Pakistani Muslim gangs raping British women and children. And, you know, some people say there's 250,000 young British girls have been raped. Other people say it's as high as 1 million people. The government has stuck their head in the sand. They say it's racist for you to mention it. But check out these numbers here. Here's a clue to why Labour don't want an inquiry into Muslim rape gangs. How the British have passively succumbed to Muslim invasion. Mayor of London, Muslim. Mayor of Birmingham, Muslim. Mayor of Leeds, Muslim. Mayor of Blackburn, Muslim. Mayor of Sheffield, Muslim, and on down the frickin' list. So is it any surprise that the government doesn't want to investigate this?
Well, it's no surprise the liberals don't want to investigate it.
Well, that would be racist. You can't do that.
Well, the Liberal Party, as I'm referring to,
Right.
and because this is their constituency.
Yeah, exactly. House passes deportation bill for criminal migrants. The U.S. House of Representatives passed H.R. 30, the Preventing Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act, with a vote of 274 to 145. This legislation aims to categorize individuals who are not legally residing in the U.S. and have committed sex crimes or domestic violence as inadmissible and deportable. Opposition from 145 Democrats highlighted concerns over redundancy with existing laws and potential harm to victims of abuse. How do you vote against this, Jeff? How does anybody who's an American and gives a shit about Americans, how do you vote against this?
Every one of these pieces of crap who voted against this need to be named and shamed. Yeah, just say, how could you vote against the law to deport sex criminals, sexual predators? And that's what it is. And if they say, well, there's already laws for that. Yeah, but they're not being enforced. Let's do it. Yeah, if we got to pass 10 laws to get them out, let's pass 10 laws to get them out. But yeah, how do you vote against this? How do you go home to your wife and children, your daughters, and say, I voted against this?
Well, and then by logical extension, Jeff, how can any American vote for the assholes who vote against this stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
They're just as guilty.
Absolutely.
You know, it's craziness. This one here is going to be interesting to see what happens here. UFO crash retrieval claims by Air Force veteran Jake Barber. Jake Barber, a U.S. Air Force veteran, has come forward claiming participation in a secretive government program tasked with retrieving UFO crash materials. He describes an encounter with an egg-shaped object believed to be of non-human origin. His testimony adds to previous whistleblower accounts and is set to be explored further in upcoming media presentations, although official confirmation and evidence verification are still pending. What I will say on this is that our mutual friend, and I'll see him this week at SHOT Show, by the way, Jeff Nicholas, who was a Black Hawk pilot for 20 years, told me that 4 times in his career, 4 times, something that is not of this earth flew in his path. So he was actually in a Black Hawk near the DFW airport, and one of these things, whatever they were, came so close to him, it knocked him off course, and he ended up hitting a tower, and was very thankful that he was able to set the bird down without crashing and killing himself. All 4 instances, by the way, when Jeff Nicholas reported it, was told that multiple other pilots had seen the same thing. The reports are out there. So who knows where this is going to go, but I have a feeling that over the next few years, we're going to hear some pretty crazy stuff is my prediction. All right. Breaking: CNN just lost in court and has been ordered to pay $5 million for defaming the U.S. Navy veteran who helped during the Afghanistan evacuation. Zachary Young was a contractor during the debacle, and CNN labeled him as an illegal profiteer and wrote a report suggesting he was operating a black market. The fake news is losing bigly on a daily basis. Beautiful. I think we've got something coming up in tonight's. All the tabs have got open. CBS is talking about settling their lawsuit with Donald Trump, which is billions of dollars. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, no, with this one, there's 2 parts to this case, and this is only the first part, and that is the actual damages. And it was 4 million compensatory and 1 million for reputational. Next week the jury sits again for punitive damages, and
okay.
that can be tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, because that is what they do to CNN to say, yeah, don't do it again. And that could be huge. And I hope to God it is. I hope it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, because that means CNN is going to be in deep, deep shit.
As far as I can tell, these types of civil actions are the only weapon that we have to fight back against the legacy media and their propaganda and bullshit.
Yep.
So I'm happy to see it for sure.
Really.
Next one up is exactly what we just said. Breaking: CBS is considering settling the $10 billion lawsuit by President Trump for election interference. 38-second video, and this shows edited versus unedited footage.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
So straight up election interference. And that's just one of many examples where they edited her word salad to make it sound better. The second part of that, the answer she was giving wasn't even to that question. It was to another question later on in the interview. I mean, it is straight up election interference by trying to make, shit for brains Kamala look like she's intelligent. So Kristi Noem makes Senator Blumenthal instantly regret his question about Trump's family policy at the border. I can't put aside 340,000 missing children. Imagine being a Democrat and thinking you have the moral high ground on this issue. This is also the stolen valor dickhead too,
Yeah.
But 2 minutes, 1 second, won't play the whole thing, but enough to get the meaning.
I have introduced a measure called Keep Families Together, not only to limit separation of families at or near ports of entry, but also the Families Belong Together Act for several Congresses to help bring the children, the kids who were victims of this policy and who still are not big back with their parents. I hope that you will support that kind of effort.
Senator, the Trump administration never had a family separation policy. They had a zero tolerance policy, which said that our laws would be followed. What I'm alarmed by is the over 300,000 children that went missing during the Biden administration. And when we talk about children and what they're potentially facing as far as victimization in this country and the trafficking that's going on, this administration's lack of desire to find out where those children are or what they may be going through is alarming to me.
And it goes on. She made mincemeat out of him. He's a fool. And nothing she said was out of line. Next one, breaking: Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass' office has been accused of legalized corruption. And there's a longer story on the New York Post. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Jeff, but no surprise here.
Yeah, it's California. She's a Democrat politician. California, of course, there's corruption. It's kind of redundant when you say that.
Yeah, and I think what's lost on a lot of people is that Democrats like her, they eat each other alive. They set each other up so that if somebody ever steps off the reservation in any manner whatsoever, they've got enough ammunition to destroy their reputation and kick them out of the club. And then they lord it over their heads, right? So next one up, Rocky goes home. On Wednesday, K9 Rocky tracked down the man investigators say killed Brazoria County Deputy Jesus Vargas. That suspect shot Rocky twice before being killed. Today, Rocky left the hospital. So go ahead, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. Great dog, police K9. When the bad guy shot him, the cops unloaded on the bad guy. And that was the last mistake he ever made.
High-speed lead poisoning.
Love it. All right. Breaking: cops in Coral Gables, Florida busted a large smuggling operation consisting of over 24 Chinese migrants in a single U-Haul. A local security guard alerted law enforcement after witnessing a suspicious amount of people getting into the U-Haul. Officers came quickly, tracked and stopped the U-Haul in question, only to find 16 Chinese females and 15 Chinese males packed inside. We do believe these individuals were brought here by the water. They were probably dropped off, we're assuming somewhere around the southern end of Coral Gables, and approached on foot to the van where they were loaded into. Police Chief Edward James Hudak. Donald J. Trump, we need you to start working tonight because this has to end. January 20th feels too far away. And that was posted yesterday. And now, just off the top of my head, we're probably somewhere in the range of 40 hours away from the inauguration-ish.
Something like that.
All right. I'm going to read this and then have you comment on it, Jeff, because this is in your wheelhouse. The Al-Qaeda travel routes to and from Afghanistan. Routes are used to covertly transport money, fighters, and weapons to current and future combat/battle zones. Each named location is a facilitator or an actual safe house. This is pretty extensive. I mean, especially the bottom one. Let's focus on that. Talk about all these trade routes. I mean, golly.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda's been, they've got a big presence in that region. And you got to realize that before he was in Afghanistan, bin Laden was in Sudan. And he is from Saudi Arabia, and his family is ethnically Yemeni. And they're all over that place. And they've got a lot of supporters and, people giving them money. And all the stuff along the African coast there, which you see as gray countries, but you still see a lot of routes. There's a huge Lebanese business community there. And with that, you get Hezbollah, and they all work together.
So quick question, Jeff, is all of these routes show coming either across or leaving our southern border? One way or the other, it's exploiting the southern border.
Right.
I'm assuming that there's other entrances to our country that they use, but not at large enough numbers that it's really them exploiting our southern border because it's an easy way to get in. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the path of least resistance right now because you can just walk across. Hopefully that will change come next week. But they would also go into Canada because Canada had a very liberal asylum policy. So they can go there and say, I'm being abused in my home country. Canadians would let them in, and then they just basically walk across at Niagara Falls if they want to. But once they have a Canadian residency card or passport or anything like that, it's easy for them to cross into the U.S. And so that happened all the time too.
Well, longest undefended border in the world, the 49th parallel. And I've been in the Northeast in some of these towns, small towns, upstate New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, where there are these really quaint old towns that were built, hundreds of years ago. And one side of Main Street is in Canada and one side is in America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally down to just walking across the street. And I've seen a number of specials on CBP operations in upstate New York in particular. The increase in people coming across that border has been just as dramatic as the southern border, but the overall numbers aren't quite as high. But I want to say that I read somewhere that if you paid a cartel $10,000 in Mexico, that they would get you to Canada and get you across the border into the U.S. from Canada for $10,000.
Yeah, I believe it.
Was the number I saw. So, all right, moving on to the next one. And Owen's information, this guy's very, very reliable, got a solid track record. China tests microwave weapon with nuclear bomb-like power to kill satellites. And I guess we have to kind of be careful what we say on microwave radiation here because we got a strike for discussing this particular topic in the past. And if you want to know why, hit us up in the comment section, preferably on another platform. We're broadcasting 6 platforms right now, like we do every night. Anyway, this new weapon, while still experimental, could be used to annihilate drones and satellites with ease. And this is what I alluded to earlier, this type of weapon being effective against drones. And keep in mind, the goal for shooting down drones is to do a minimal amount of damage so you can still retrieve some intel from them, right? Not just turning them into dust. And so when Mike Sterling and I did the first video warning Americans that open air venues were at a big risk, and I think you got in on probably the second or third video on that topic of air sliced anthrax, air sliced fentanyl, all this different stuff. 2 days after the first episode on that we did, there was a $20,000 DJI drone came into the Cleveland Browns stadium on a Thursday night football game, and everybody just stood around and looked at it. This is a couple weeks after 10/7 happened in Gaza. And then the following Monday, there was an RFP released on sam.gov, supplyandmanagement.gov. It's where all federal contracts are awarded and maintained, seeking requests for proposals for EMP-powered rifles that you could shoot at a drone, take the circuitry out, have it crash, and still recover some intelligence. So just a couple more points here. I'm going to let you take this one, Jeff. Chinese researchers have allegedly developed a new high-power microwave HPM weapon with power equivalent to electromagnetic energy released by a nuclear explosion. Reportedly also relatively compact, the new weapon could prove game-changing for anti-drone and anti-satellite military operations. The weapon is still developing and has not left the laboratory, so it is yet to be field tested. Weapons such as this one can cause significant damage and even destroy electronic components, making them invaluable for modern military operations. Many nations worldwide are developing their HPMs, with the U.S. reportedly planning to deploy some to the Indo-Pacific region soon. It is reported that the U.S. would plan to use such weapons to target and knock out Chinese satellites should conflict erupt between the two superpowers. Couple things I'd like you to comment on, Jeff. Number one, comment on the threat to our satellites posed by the Chinese and what would happen if they took them out. And then comment on these directed energy weapons as far as being useful against both satellites and drones.
Yeah, it's not a really complex technical problem. I mean, getting it to work right is, but what you do is you have a high-powered microwave source. And what it does is when it hits, electronics, especially silicon-based electronics, chips, it will, if it's because of the frequency of the energy, it creates eddy currents in the chip itself, and that fries the circuitry. And we've been working on them for decades. The Russians have too. You got to get it pointed in the right direction. You got to make sure it doesn't kill your guys behind, your equipment behind it, but only the ones in front of it. And so there's some issues you got to deal with there with, you got to have mode converters and things like that. But to get the high energy stuff that you want to do for long range, a lot of times what they will do is explosively driven. You have an explosively driven flux compression generator, which it explodes. So it's only a one-shot deal, but it produces a lot of power in a very short amount of time. And again, one-shot deal. But if you're taking down, a $500 million satellite, and you do it with a $5 million, device, that's a good return on your investment.
Yeah, well said. So interesting times, that's for sure. Next one up, scientists warn climate change will continue to affect the locations that the government wants to purchase at discounted prices.
Of course.
Firmly said with tongue planted in cheek.
Yeah.
All right. Make no mistake, DJI is a CCP company and a major importer of drones in the U.S. Just before the inauguration, DJI just changes its software to allow drones to fly into restricted areas. Highly suspicious. Never buy their drones, buy USA products. This got mixed up in the whole listing of the 49-page brief sit rep for tonight. So apologies for coming back to that topic. We are at the end of chapter 2, and I think Jeff has to go soon.
Yeah, I've got to bail or my wife will kill me.
So I'm going to play a short video from our friends at Flex Industries, flexindustries.com. SD17 gets you 17% off. When the ad is done, you're stuck with just me for the rest of chapter 3. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your input.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
AK Flex. AK Flex. The crazy part about this thing, it can fit in all platforms. This right here is in a 9mm. We running in the 7.62, 5.45, short, even in the Draco, the long 16-inch. AK Flex, baby.
So that trigger was just released a couple days ago, Wednesday of this past week. The performance is amazing. Flexindustries.com. I will have a handful of them with me next week. There's a bunch of us from Survival Dispatch that'll be at SHOT Show in Vegas. We'll be throwing some locations out there where y'all can meet up with us, and we'll be giving away those triggers. We'll have G-Flex triggers, which is their trigger for the Glocks as well, and it's legal. It's not like a Glock switch. And we'll have the 3MR triggers as well, which are for the AR platform. All right. Now we're into chapter 3. So chapter 3 is everything from, zany stories to just crazy stories to funny memes and everything in between. And I've got a ton of stuff. If you went to our Patreon and downloaded the sit rep, you'll see that chapter 3 is jam packed. Normally I try to shoot for chapter 3 to wrap up at the 2-hour point. It's probably going to go past that tonight. I don't think I can get through them all in 19 minutes. But we shall see. So first one up here, this is pretty cool. American third generation ENVG-B night vision devices in use by Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. So to me, it looks like a combination of infrared and thermal together. And every time we've compared infrared to thermal, and people have asked us which one should you buy, we always recommend both because they both have positives as well as some negatives as well. And this seems to combine it pretty nicely. I actually just got some night vision products sent to us by a couple of, let's call it economy vendors. And one of them is for an IR unit sitting right behind me on a bolt action Remington Precision 308. And it's horrible. It's an IR device that it's clamp on, right? So you put it behind the eyepiece. Has a screen, has an IR flood that goes with it. The resolution is absolute garbage. I put it on a higher end piece of glass. And another company, though, sent us one that can be used as a standalone monocular, or you can mount it to a pick rail. For what they cost, and I'll cover more on this in another episode, really, really good, with one caveat you have to look out for these IR units that are digital rendering that mount to a pick rail. There is no way to zero the reticle. So there's no way that you're going to have an accurate reticle. So will you be able to see at night, long distance? Yeah. Will it be accurate for your rifle? Probably not. So I don't know of any way to solve that when it's built into it, but I'll let you know what our testing reveals all in good time. All right, next one up. This is pretty cool. Cat turd. I so need one of these. An extremely efficient machine. This thing's badass. If that ain't the baddest bush hog you ever seen, I don't know what is, but pretty cool. All right, next one up. And just like Jeff predicted, and this is from Benny Johnson, of course, mass self-deportations are reportedly in progress. 2-minute video, just going to play the beginning.
Trump has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. And before those operations begin, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joins us live from San Antonio, Texas this morning with more on this story. Jorge, how many migrants are we actually seeing doing this, leaving voluntarily?
Right now, Mark, it's unclear, but we are starting to see a trend, and this comes as cities across the U.S. and Mexico are now bracing for President-elect's deportation operation. But his hardline messaging on those deportation efforts have some migrants panicking and some even choosing now to self-deport back to their home countries. I spoke with immigration attorney Rolando Vasquez, who tells me that some of the immigrants that he represents that entered under the Biden administration are now choosing to return home, fearing deportation under the incoming administration.
So my answer to how many are choosing to leave, not enough, but we're going to fix that this coming week. At least we're going to start to fix it. Okay, so this one's friggin' funny. Never bring a shoe to an ostrich fight. 40-second video.
Well, if you think you have enough courage to throw a shoe at an ostrich, you better think again. This will end up sweeping your leg and nearly put you in a body bag for your efforts here tonight. My God, what the hell was she thinking? You should have just ran. I gotta hand it to her. She had great aim, threw it straight at his testicles, and this is where he's like, I'm nobody's ostrich. Lady ends up running for her life, but it's just not good enough when he sweeps her leg and puts her in a body bag with no mercy displayed whatsoever. The ostrich turns around and goes, who's the ostrich now, huh? Huh? Oh, bitch, get out the way. Get out the way, bitch. Get out the way. Oh, bitch.
Yeah, I don't care if it makes me a child laugh at that stuff. That's freaking funny. All right, next one up. Breaking. Blue Anon claims that Trump will not only be denied inauguration, but also face arrest on Monday. Democrats need to get their grandpa and increase his meds by Monday. 4 minutes, 23 seconds. I'm just going to play a little bit at the beginning so you can see the level of insanity that exists in our country.
He is not going to be sworn in, and he will not be our next president. How I know that for certain comes from the knowledge of some information I found out last night that I didn't know. We all know that when Biden was sworn in, the one person not present at his inauguration was who? Donald Trump. He lacked the character to be there, to share in another man's joy, to have the character to say, I didn't win the election, you did. But here's a guy that's been given everything on a silver platter his whole life. He was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. And he couldn't be at Joe Biden's inauguration. So what I found out last night is, I'm thinking, when is Donald Trump going to be arrested? And now I know that he's going to be arrested at his inauguration, because there's going to be 3 people not present there. They are Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, and their wives will not be present.
So if you're tracking this, he's basically saying because those traitors aren't going to be present at the inauguration, that means that Donald Trump's going to be arrested. These people are not right in the head. Here's the younger version of this guy, 2 minutes, 8 seconds. Same thing. I'm just going to play enough for you to get the gist of it. This is total soy boy, by the way.
They got him. 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 And in the event that this really is like the end of TikTok in America, which I still don't fully believe, but yeah, I'm gonna say it. They got him. The 3-letter agencies, the government, whoever you want to say, they got him. He's not going to be inaugurated. He is going to be punished for his crimes, both proven and still in the works, I think. But yeah, I don't think he's going to take office. And even if, who we want to take office doesn't, honestly, as long as it's not him, that's fine with me. Although I do hope to God that it doesn't, turn out to be a process where it's JD or Little Johnson, because that's not much better. But yeah, we heard that his inauguration was moved inside because of security and not because of weather, like he said. So I don't know. Also, I saw a bunch of pictures this morning that NYPD is there. I don't know if that's the norm or a regular thing, just to have extra,
So number one, this guy's a Fruit Loop. And number two, it is the norm to have law enforcement from other cities. They deputize them as U.S. Marshals so they can serve in another jurisdiction, especially at a federal venue like that. Moving on to the next one. Parent sends, actually, let me pause this so we don't get ahead of it too much. Parent sends elementary school principal to the hospital after she told the parent to keep the kids off the court because they were disrupting the game. This is a woman that was there with kids. that was disrupting everything, and she wasn't watching the kids. And when somebody told her you need to, she didn't like it. Usual suspects here, by the way.
Shows the parent hit the principal. She's knocked to the ground. Police say she noticed young children walking onto the court while the game was being played. You can see the principal getting up so the little kids didn't get hurt. At least 2 times she pulls the kids back while the game is in play. At some point, Plaquemine Police Chief Stephen Angolio says words were exchanged, and the mom was having none of it.
The principal sitting in a chair, the lady's walking by with 3 kids in tow and one of her friends, and the principal asked her, they keep your kids off the basketball court, disrupts the whole game. She obviously took offense with that, and you see her move in on the teacher puts her hand up to kind of keep her off, and she just punched her, knocked her out of the chair.
Surveillance footage in the school's gym obtained by the WAFBI team shows the parent hit the principal. She's knocked to the ground.
All right, what a wonderful culture. Moving on to the next one here. My God, I forgot about this one. Is this a new gender? This is on the New York subway, by the way. I got to play this twice because it's that crazy. Wow, we certainly have a epidemic of like a national mental health crisis on our hands. All right, this ends in 2 days. I'm not going to play the whole minute and 10 seconds, but here's insanity again on display.
All too often, I hear leaders talk about providing everyone with dignity and respect like it's an aspirational goal. That's not good enough. Dignity and respect is the bare minimum. It's the floor of where we can be. We must set our sights higher and focus on intentional inclusivity, because there are still far too many people out there, not just LGBTQ individuals, that feel marginalized, shut out, or discriminated against. So for all of you out there, I ask you to set out your symbols of pride, share your pronouns in your email, particularly if you're a person who doesn't think they need to. Initiate difficult conversations about racial and gender.
And that's the end of that. How this supposedly helps our military's mission to be the most lethal military in the world is beyond me. Thank God this stuff is going away pronto. Can't wait to see Pete Hegseth in charge. All right, something funnier. Check this out. The Amish donut. Whoever added the sound effects, that job well done. It's funny stuff. All right, next one up from James Woods with an S. Howling utter falsehoods into the clouds on his way to the dumpster of historic infamy. The louder he hoots traditionally, the bigger the lie. Such an embarrassment. 24 seconds.
Today, I affirm the Equal Rights Amendment to have cleared all the necessary hurdles to be added to the U.S. Constitution now. The Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land now. It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now.
So shit for brain Biden thinks that as the president that he can modify the Constitution. Golly, crazy, crazy. All right. Oh, dang it. Quick check in on the left. They are not doing well. This was a really funny video, but there you go. Copyright bullshit. That hits us all the time, by the way. In case you're wondering why you don't see advertisements on our videos on YouTube, is because they give us a copyright infringement on everything because of the videos we like to play at the end and some music and stuff, whatever. All right, next one up. This here is absolute gold. Says it all needs to say about the last 4 years. What will people remember about Joe Biden? Johnny hit the streets to find out. 3 minutes, 57 seconds. I'll play maybe a minute or so.
Johnny's been on the streets asking people about Biden for the last couple of years, and people have always been honest. They weren't fans. So now that his presidency's over, what's your favorite moment? Johnny went to find out.
Come Monday, Joe Biden is out. You gonna miss him?
Not really. Not really.
Not one mother bit. Hell no. No.
I will miss him.
Is that a joke? Thank you.
What has been your favorite thing that Joe Biden has done for you?
I don't know.
Dropped out.
He tried to forgive the student loans, but no luck.
The only thing he's done is fall down some stairs. 10 years from now, when you look back at the Biden presidency, what would you say is the most memorable moment?
Falling off of a bike. I really liked ice cream. Sleeping. So, Sleepy Joe. Sniffing people's hair.
Got a lot of things.
What the is Biden done? He can't even give you a sex scandal. Well, if you remember, his wife kissed Kamala's husband on the lips. Ooh, that's nasty.
Too much wine.
Did Joe secure the border?
No.
No.
No, because there's still immigrants coming.
Joe's worried about every other country but the USA.
We're still in completely.
Did Joe improve the economy? No, which is why I won't mother miss him. He didn't put in my pocket.
No, because inflation is still up. Prices have gone up like crazy.
I just paid $11 for bread.
That is called Bidenomics.
Did Joe make you feel safe?
Safe? Do you see what's going on in subways right now? Safe?
I wouldn't trust him with my kids if I had some.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say like a 2. I didn't feel unsafe. I mean, I'm from Ohio.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Before Joe took office, he vowed to lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international pressure.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international pressure.
Did he do it? True international pressure.
What the fuck was that? Oh my God. All right, next one up. Holy shit, I'm dying. New medication. This is some funny shit.
Hey, babe. Yeah. Is your sister still gay, or is she bi, or is she straight, or what?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. I've seen her with girls and I've seen her with guys, so I don't know.
She just broke up with her girlfriend. That should give you your answer.
Yeah, she's still kind of sad about that, huh?
Well, yeah, she's devastated. Why?
Well, because the FDA just approved new medication for lesbians with depression.
Don't. Just don't.
It's called Tricoxagen. Oh my God! She's gonna be happy! She's gonna be happy!
Just for anybody who missed that, the new medication. Here it comes.
Oh my God!
Oh, didn't quite get it back far enough. Here we go.
It's called
Tricoxagen. Oh my God. All right. Well, that's embarrassing. 34 seconds.
And I have a little surprise for you.
Oh, I got a little surprise for you.
All right. Mom, Dad, did you meet my girlfriend Ava?
Sorry.
Oh my God. All right, next one up. Oh my God, this guy nails the impersonations. Minute and 35 seconds. I'll probably play the whole video.
The TikTok ban is a disaster because it comes from China, and you cannot have Xi Jinping spying on us like a dog. We're going to look into it, China.
On the subject of TikTok, my wife is actually Chinese,
So out of all the minorities, Asians are my favorite. Scooby-Doo. If in fact TikTok does get banned, we still have to unite. As red states, blue states, these are the United States. Instead of arguing over TikTok, maybe we should be arguing over banning the wealthy elites who are destroying this country. Ho, ho. TikTok's a dangerous place. I mean, look what's happening in LA with these fires. Their widespread misinformation campaign. Elon Musk talking with my hands. TikTok, you gotta just You know, I love TikTok, but I love tatas even more.
TikTok is a dangerous tool weaponized by communist China to destroy American youth. I'm going to Cancun.
Just like great senators, President Trump and I are committed to understanding what TikTok really does. My Mima, my Peepa, and my Weewa all agree.
I'm less concerned with TikTok, and I'm more concerned with the rampant pornography infiltrating our schools. These leftist ideologies ought to be banned.
If you do make a TikTok, wear a mask.
Senator Leahy, what's a TikTok? Senator Leahy.
Hats off to that young man. That was pretty good. Our friend John Rocker, Trump will medically discharge over 15,000 transgender service members, deeming them unfit to serve. This is the way. Amen to that. All right. Good riddance. Nobody wants you in this town. 26 seconds.
Nobody wants you in this town. Nobody wants you around, period. Come on, man. Oh, look at him, fellas. You crying, boy? You crying, boy? Maybe we'll go back down to McDonald's and get you a Lamburger, some French fries. How about a Weineken? You little sissy boy! Def Leppard suck!
Oh my God. All right. Next one up. Raw news alerts. Sections of U.S. Highway 285 are closed following multiple crashes caused by high winds and a blowing dust storm, resulting in dangerous travel conditions. If y'all haven't caught this, this is pretty crazy going down in Texas today. But just absolute carnage on 285. All right. Next one up. This is good. All right. 3 minutes. I won't play the whole thing. I don't even think I can make it through 60 seconds, but wait to see this meltdown.
Donald Trump is going tomorrow with Mark Rubio in Florida, not far from the Pulse nightclub, where 49 LGBT people were massacred, to an anti-gay organization event. So do not try to equate the mistake that was made by her campaign staff. And I agree with Tara, whoever was in charge of crowd last night should lose their
May I
job.
ask you a
And
question?
wait a minute. No, you can't ask me a question.
Because you can't answer the question.
Oh, you can't
What
ask me a question, honey. I can't answer, so don't
great.
even
Answer
try.
this one. What attracted the father of the Orlando terrorist to your candidate?
He's a mentally ill individual
Oh,
who
that's
ran
what
for
attracted him.
president.
I get it.
Pardon me?
What attracted him to your candidate? And your answer was he's mentally ill.
His answer that is, stop smiling and smirking like it's a funny thing that there is a man in Florida whose son massacred 49 people. And that man, in my opinion, contributed to who his son was, because he is clearly mentally unbalanced, running for president of Afghanistan.
What attracted
so
him
it's,
to your candidate?
he's a tragic individual.
I have to ask this question.
And you are outrageous.
Hang on.
All right, moving on to the next one. Ohio teacher has a meltdown because Ohio passed the Parents' Bill of Rights, which requires schools to inform parents if their kid decides to change their gender, bans gender ideology indoctrination in K-3, and allows parents to opt their kids out of lessons with sexual content. Why would any teacher be mad about not being able to keep secrets from parents and parents having a say in their children's education?
In the middle of the night, while everyone else was sleeping, politicians in Ohio said, you know what would be a good job? Do you know how we can really help the youth and the students within the state of Ohio? We can get out of our bed in the middle of the night, leave our families behind, tiptoe in, and vote in a new bill. That is exactly what Ohio did yesterday, and they introduced the Don't Say Gay bill. This bill was actually introduced last year in 2023 as the Parents' Bill of Rights. and the supporters of this bill, see, what they said is that this bill is there to protect the critical relationship of the parent and the child. As you know who they blamed the lack of that relationship on? Teachers. Why are teachers being used as a scapegoat? I digress. That's how I think. So in this bill, teachers now.
That's about enough of that. So if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, you can download the brief if you're a paying member, and you can watch all of the videos that I only play a portion of. LA Fire Department emergency line. What are your pronouns? That's about it. In Canada, unknown activists have been adding drawings of penises to symbols of solidarity with Palestine. This has sparked a wave of outrage in the Arab segment of X. Yeah, boo fucking who. All right, check this out. So 58-year-old, I believe she's a senator, memory serves me right, 58-year-old senator versus 59-year-old Attorney General Pam Bondi. Again, I don't necessarily like Pam Bondi because of her red flag support for red flag laws, but she sure has aged a lot better than the miserable Democrats. Maybe it's because she doesn't have to take SSRIs and stuff. Tired of the Venezuelan gangs in your city? Remember, there's no record of them being here. So there won't be a homicide investigation or missing persons report. I am not an attorney, and I'm not giving you legal advice, just to be clear. All right, next one up. The same people who tell you that Epstein killed himself and all the cameras failed are the people telling you that this potato got 80 million votes and we don't need an audit to verify votes. Right. What we are witnessing is amazing. The deep state influence machine is not working anymore. The Dems mainstream media cry all day about Trump and his appointees, and nobody cares anymore. They've cried wolf so many times, the public have tuned them out. The enemy's power is waning. Biden-Harris accomplishments allowed 15 million unvetted illegals into the country or more. Historic inflation crisis, record high gas prices in all 50 states, record high consumer debt, released terrorists into the country, Ukraine-Russia war, Israel-Hamas war, disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, violent crime skyrocketing, tried to jail political rival and name a democracy, lied to the American public about Joe's decline, declared war on American energy, record low test scores for K-12 students, most unpopular president and VP in history, highest bankruptcy since 2010, highest credit card debt history, mortgage rates 100% of rents, out of control inflation, sent 150 billion to Ukraine, more like double that, agendas to support sex change. Just disaster is the only way to describe this mess. We have investigated ourselves and have found ourselves to be innocent. FBI, CIA, DOD, DOJ. Biden is expected to issue more pardons before leaving office on Monday. And this is what I mentioned earlier. I highly suspect that there's going to be forthcoming, pardons, preemptive pardons for Mayorkas, probably Garland, probably Jack Smith, and the rest of the criminals. All right, John Fetterman, you caught me. I pretended to be retarded so Democrats would think I was just like them to get elected. All right, so a Chinese app is a national security threat, but China buying up all of our farmland isn't. All righty then. When it's finally over, when the nightmare is done, when he is finished, when he is gone, I don't ever want to hear his name again. Never, ever. I just hope an obese lesbian woman of color reaches us before a white man, says the lady trapped in the burning inferno, clearly in Los Angeles. I can't believe I sucked all that dick just to babysit a cracker with dementia. Oh my God, whoever did that one, hats off to them. Well done. Imagine being the guy who just set up 100,000 chairs on the National Mall and they announced they're moving the inauguration indoors. Thank God they're moving it indoors just for security concerns alone. but I would prefer that wasn't even there, to be honest with you. You can't tell me that doesn't leave a mark. We've shown some pretty funny memes this week of Beavis and Butthead and New Scum, and the resemblance is uncanny, to say the least. Bear with me here for a second. I'm just teeing up the next batch of memes. That'll get us through a little bit here. All right, next one up. Trust me, you only have to impale a few of them. The rest will go home. Says Vlad the Impaler. All right. In 2 days, America will be unbidened by what has been. Let's fucking go. Oh, sorry. Didn't have it lit up. In 2 days, America will be unbidened by what has been. Let's fucking go. All right. That's a good one. The winning future, the failed past. Boy, they say a picture says 1,000 words, and that one does it in spades. Next one up. Ice Ice Baby coming soon to a city near you. Not soon enough. All right. Joe Biden, new stamp, new commemorative stamp, worth precisely 0 cents. Sounds about right. All right. Liberals are acting like Trump is going to kill all the gays, make slavery legal again, and take away women's rights. Did he become a Muslim? True story. All right. Garbage pickup day is arriving soon, January the 20th. Amen to that. All right. Mark safe from 4 years of an illegitimate, senile president who put America last. Ain't that the truth? All right. Me looking at the purple-haired barista right in the eyes as I hit no tip on the iPad. Oh, my God. The humiliation of being rejected by his own party is a fitting end to a life spent betraying his country. Has anyone ever really seen these two in the same room? God, you can't unsee that. Bear with me for another couple seconds here while I tee up the next batch of memes. Anybody who downloaded tonight's sit rep knows there is an absolute ton of content tonight's sit rep. It is 49 pages long. Go over to patreon.com/survival dispatch. Free membership will get you 50% of our daily sit reps, which is essentially a highly curated daily newspaper. $9.99 a month gets you all of our sit reps. And it also gets you an invite to our private Signal chat, where the volume of information exchanged and camaraderie and like-minded individuals sharing information is absolutely phenomenal. All right. So Ronald Reagan, I destroyed the Soviet Union. Donald Trump, I destroyed the Democrat Party. I would argue that he destroyed the Republican Party as well. Oh my God. When Florida gets cold. Oh my! All I can think of is George Costanza on the the shrinkage. Pretty funny episode. Do you believe JFK was killed for trying to expose the same crooks Trump is now exposing? Personally, yes, I absolutely do. When did America stop being great? When this clown was elected twice, and not a chance he was elected twice. Rigged elections. All right, we finally found a picture of Michael Obama pregnant. Only took how many years? All right. Did you know the term conspiracy theorist was created by the CIA to stop critical thinkers from asking questions about the JFK assassination? In a memo called Countering Criticism of the Warren Report, the CIA set out to make the term conspiracy theorist as a weapon to be used against anyone who questioned the government's illegal activities and secret programs. And it has worked like a charm ever since. That is a mouthful there. All right. Mismanaged forest, multiple arsonists, administrative incompetency, diverted water resources, firefighter budget shortage, but it's all climate change. And I think that may be a repeat actually from earlier this week. Hello, my name is R2 Fuck You. I was hoping Mike Sterling would be with us tonight because that's right up his alley. And the last meme of the night, the Taliban before Biden, the Taliban after Biden, pretty much says it all. So for those of you who hung with me through all this, I appreciate it. It looks like we still have about 700 people with us. We peaked around 1,500 earlier tonight. All right, homework. So in light of the main story of the night, which was Joe Biden's disastrous, I'll call it installation because he was not elected, what can you do in light of everything that we discussed in the first chapter? Okay, number one, don't bite your tongue. Show your support for truly patriotic candidates. The silent majority can no longer be silent. Look where that's got us over the past 50 years. Nothing good has come out of it. Number two, speak out against Obama and his minions every chance you get. The guy has been the biggest disaster we have ever seen in America. And God forbid that he ever gets anywhere near power again. Number three, speak out against woke policies, including DEI, CRT, and other insane initiatives. We need to embrace MEI in every aspect of our society: merit, excellence, and intelligence. No more participation trophies. No more appointing somebody to a position because of anything other than merit, excellence, and intelligence. No more allowing attorneys to become attorneys without having to take the bar exam because too many of the DEI creatures can't pass the exam. Don't believe it? Go look it up. It's a thing. All right. And number four, use the same strategy that we used on November 5th, 2024, and take someone with you to the polls who doesn't normally vote. Our loyal followers know that we preached that 7 days a week for almost the entire year of 2024. Our good friend Jason Wilson was the one who came up with that strategy. There were over 3,400 citizen journalists like Survival Dispatch News preaching from the same book. And even though the Democrats cheated again in 2024, we made the election too big to rig. And that's how we did it. Doesn't do any good for somebody like me to say to you, my friends, essentially, make sure you get out and vote because you're already going to vote. But if I say to you, take somebody with you who doesn't normally vote, there's 10 million gun owners who do not vote, 10 million hunters, which automatically, for the most part, makes them hunters or gun owners, pardon me, don't normally vote. That's more than enough to completely turn an election the other way. So that's the homework for tonight. Patreon.com/survival dispatch, $9.99 a month. You get the daily sit rep. Again, it's a highly curated newspaper. We've got some exciting stuff happening there, by the way. I've got our senior editor, Grace. She has got a new template put together for us. So you're going to see the daily sit rep right now looks like something like an early report from Drudge. And when we're done instituting Grace's new stuff, it's going to be super polished. Really looking forward to that. You get access to our encrypted signal chat. You get our 228-page essentials guide for free. It's normally $10. You get 50% off of all of our e-magazines, and you can see them on this wall over here. We've got 36 of them that we've published, and plus the essentials guide above and beyond that. And that's it. That's what you get for $9.99 a month. The conflicted question of the night is actually another grok question. How do you balance the need for secrecy with the benefits of community in your prepping strategy? So there are 19 of us who work on Survival Dispatch to varying extents. And it's our job to dispatch information so our fellow Americans and friends of Americans can survive in these very uncertain times. So while we maintain some element of privacy with regards to our preps, we have to give a lot of information out so that we can share that with you all. And hopefully, you find value in that and you learn something from us as we learn from you all as well. We've got an amazing audience. I get a ton of emails. I average 300 plus emails a day, not including spam. The feedback and input that we get from people is amazing. I had somebody write to me tonight and say, hey, can I help out with Liberty Club? So Todd Callender, very good friend of ours, he owns Cloud Hub. He's engaged my team to build the next social media platform for him, and it's called Liberty Club. And my team's already working on it. I'm already working on it. And we're going to launch probably mid-February. But one of our very loyal followers said, hey, and I already know this person works in the tech industry. Can I help? I mean, that's just amazing. Hats off to all y'all who follow us. We can't thank you enough for your support. As you know, we work at this 7 days a week. the sit rep for each day doesn't happen in one day, by the way. It gets stuff added to it through the course of a week. Then the final day, we put a big push based on what's at the top of the news cycle. If you broke it down to man hours, so if you took my time plus everybody else's, there's a minimum of 6 man hours goes into a daily sit rep. Most of the time it's more like 10 hours. Some of them, the longer ones, we had one a couple weeks ago, it was like 70 pages, 20 man hours went into that particular document. So as far as for you, maintaining secrecy with the benefits of community, you should never reveal what you have. Don't put stuff online. Don't put it on your social media. Nobody needs to know what you have for preps, especially for food, guns and ammo, that sort of stuff. As far as a community, if you join or form what's called a MAG, a mutual assistance group, there has to be a high level of secrecy amongst your group versus other people. So you're going to have to share some information to assume whatever your role is in that group. But generally speaking, when you speak in terms of a mutual assistance group, you speak in terms of SHTF, you have to bring something to the party. So if you don't have skills, but you bring a ton of supplies to the table, that may very well get you in the group. Or if you're a doctor or a medic or a paramedic, that may get you into the group. If you're a gunsmith, that may get you into the group. If you reload ammo, that may get you into the group. If you show up with 100,000 rounds in your munitions, that'll probably get you in the group as well. But think in terms of only sharing the bare minimum that you need to fulfill a role that is benefiting a small group, a mutual assistance group. And if people are not in that mutual assistance group, don't tell people exactly what you have. And then Keith Graves has a great idea. And by the way, Keith will be with us either Tuesday or Wednesday at SHOT Show. I'll have to go back to the schedule, but he came up with this concept of making charity giveaways. So in other words, the shit hits the fan. Somebody shows up at your door and says, "Hey man, I don't have anything." You have something that you can give them. Maybe there's, a firearm, maybe there's food, maybe there's water, maybe there's a way to filter water, whatever the case may be. So those kinds of things are good to add and also help you maintain an element of privacy as far as what you actually have. Last couple things I'll mention is there's a section at the end of every sit rep now that has links and discount codes for about 24 companies that we recommend. If they're not on that list, even though we have relationships with over 300 vendors, I am not willing to put Survival Dispatch's name on something for whatever reason. We're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses, so I'm not going to talk shit about people's businesses, but only the ones that you see at the bottom of each daily sit rep are the ones that we endorse. And we also have a restricted section at the end. We're going to start adding more stuff to that. But for example, there's an article in today's sit rep at the end under the restricted section that would get a strike in the blink of an eye if we showed it on YouTube. Hence the reason we had to put it in the restricted area. But that is it. We will be back tomorrow night at the regular time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hang out for the great video that's fixing to come up. And God bless America.
Our suspicions about you, things we couldn't see, slowly now confirmed as actualities. The projection